Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another late night show of the Politically Insane Late Night Show. We have a big show today for you. We've got a lot to talk about. Again, an unscripted show just to kind of have a discussion, and we're going to be talking about really just government involvement. That's the whole theme of tonight, government involvement, specifically government involvement in marriage. That's one that we brought up the last live stream that we had. The government involvement in marriage, how much they really should be involved, and really just kind of an opinion based argument. Maybe we'll end up agreeing with each other, just kind of talking about how much the government should be involved in marriage. We kind of had a little bit of a disagreement last time we talked. And then we'll also talk about the government involvement in Second Amendment. I think all of us will probably 100% agree with each other on this one. Maybe we'll bring out some other ideas as well. But then also the government involvement and higher up involvement in social media, and specifically talking about Elon Musk and how he has taken over Twitter and how it seems that it may start to become more of a free platform. And we'll kind of talk about that and see how much we believe that the government ought to interfere with these open platforms such as Twitter and Facebook and all of these. We've seen that, especially for those on the right, for those who are conservatives, we've seen a lot of press against conservatives and a lot of silencing conservative voices. And that's something that a lot of us are just tired of. We're sick of it, and we want to get rid of it. But we'll see what we have to discuss there on the government and higher up involvement on social media. But before we start our show today, I do want to mention there's a great book for those who have followed Politically Insane in the past. You may have seen our interview with Scott LaPierre. He is a pastor and an author of a couple of different books, and we talked about one of them when he came on the show. But there's another book that he just now released, and it sounds like an amazing book. I just got them in the mail really today, but I guess they came in the mail yesterday. I just saw them today, but they're an amazing book, and it's Your Finances God's Way. I encourage you to go check out this book. It's a great book to help Christians understand how to finance their money and how to really try to live their life as debt-free as they can by using God and inspiration from God, and kind of showing how God would have them to run their finances to keep it that way. And Scott is a brilliant mind, and I trust that his books are amazing. I can't wait to read through them. You can get the actual book and the workbook. Both the links should be in the description, so go check it out. You can check it out on Amazon. Leave him reviews, help him out, and help him grow. It's something that I'm encouraged that Scott reached out to me and asked me to help out, to help grow, and to help show others this book and help them to learn about how God wants them to run their finances. And today we don't only have me, and we also have Tyler, but then we also, of course, have Britton. He's in the studio again with me today. But then we also have a special guest. We have Buck Johnson from, I guess I'll let him kind of talk about it. Buck. Welcome to the show. Go ahead and tell us about your podcast and a little bit about you.
Well, I host the Counterflow podcast, and I'm a firefighter by day and night, as that goes. And I don't say the department I work for just to kind of keep my politics separate from that. I don't want to get in trouble at work, of course, because my politics usually don't follow what's kind of popular amongst you know how that works. So anyway, yeah, I host a Counterflow podcast, and I started as a libertarian podcast, and now it's kind of evolved into a lot of other things besides libertarianism. I would say it's kind of a right-leaning politically, and I talk about Orthodox Christianity. I'm a catechumen in the Orthodox Church, and we talk about all kinds of good stuff. I have guests every week. It's an interview format, and so that's basically where I'm at. I'm in Lockhart, Texas, small town, about 30 minutes southeast of Austin, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and we appreciate you coming on the show and making some time. For those who haven't heard of Buck, maybe you don't know who he is, I encourage you to go check out the Counterflow podcast. It is pretty good. He's got a lot of very interesting guests that really have a lot to bring to the table too. So, yeah, again, just very excited to have Buck. And then, of course, Tyler. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm alive. I'm wasting a Thursday afternoon spending it with you, Josh. But other than that, it's great. And I'm excited to talk with Buck and see where the conversation goes.
At least we brought Buck on the show, so you have a little bit of excitement to
Yeah,
see.
it kind of balances it out. I have to deal with you and Britton, but then I have Buck. So, no, that's still not a fair enough trade. Sorry, Buck.
That's all right. Yeah. You're young. I don't. You should be out partying or something, I think.
Do I look like I get invited to parties? Gosh, this guy, man,
And then, of
he
course,
thinks
we
highly of
have
me.
Britton in the studio. How you doing, Britt?
I'm doing better than Tyler. Doing pretty good. Appreciate you having me.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive into it. Government involvement, of course, just knowing Buck's background, and of course, Tyler would even probably label himself as a libertarian, but I think all of us might have somewhat of a libertarian, understanding each other's politics a little bit. Of course, this is the first time I've actually met Buck, and now my camera's wanting to give out on me.
Yeah, this is
But this is
I,
the first time that we've met Buck, so it's kind of the first time, kind of actually having a conversation with him and meeting him and seeing what he has to offer. But overall, I think we all kind of have a little bit of a libertarian mindset, somewhat, and that's something that's probably a little bit on our minds, trying to keep the government out of our lives overall. But there is, I think there is a lot of areas where the government ought to be involved. They ought to show their involvement a little bit. And so, just kind of opening it up, I guess I'll start off with Buck. Buck, you go ahead and kind of explain. I don't know if this is something you've thought about at all, but just kind of tell us where you think the government should be involved in politics,
Oh man, that's
or
that's
not
that's
politics. Sorry, but in marriage.
okay. That's easier. It's easier to narrow it down. As far as marriage goes, I would say my thoughts on that are my position would be fairly libertarian still. I don't think the government should play any role in marriage. I would suspect that marriage is, if there's an institution that would be involved in it, it would be the church. And other than that, I don't have a lot of need for government to be involved. When I first got married, I didn't get a marriage license or anything like that. I didn't think I needed permission for the government to say yes, you can marry your wife, and so we avoided that. And yeah, as far as that goes, it's kind of a personal matter, and if you want to have someone sanction it, certainly I think the church would be the appropriate body to do so.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I can agree overall, and it's something that we discussed, and the reason why this was something that came up on our minds was because I think Britain was actually the one that kind of brought it up, and so I'll kind of let you kind of run the floor for a minute and kind of tell us your thoughts on government being involved in marriage.
So I agree with Buck on this one. I think I brought up last time in the last podcast that I think that there needs to be some involvement from somebody. I would agree that it should be the church. Um, and I think I brought up the point maybe that, especially with divorce, stuff like that, although that's not in God's plan, as we all know anyway, um, it certainly is something that happens. I think that there should be something set in place, whether it's the church or whatever, not the government though, that does have some say, and there should be some law somewhere to protect people because things do happen. I mean, divorce, like I said, is not something God wants, but nonetheless, it's always going to happen. So that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's something too. And whenever you bring that up, I guess from my standpoint, and this is something that we kind of mentioned last show. I apologize for everyone who is watching on video. I think we're just going to have to go without video for the rest of the time. The iPad died on us, so we're not going to have the connection there. But as far as the government being involved, you bring up divorce, and I think that's something that should be thought about because it is something that's in our society today. But it's just something that when you look at divorce, it is something we mentioned this last show, that it's something that is really man-made. Divorce is something that God hates. It's something that God does not want, and it's something, of course, looking at our society, it is going to happen. So it's just kind of where do we draw that line? Where do we allow the government to intervene? And of course, there's things like prenup and stuff like that, which I think we would all probably disagree with. If you're getting into a marriage, prenup is never a good thing to sign, getting into marriage. But I guess I'll kind of open it up to Tyler, let you kind of state your views on government being involved in marriage.
yeah. So as the only guy I'm guessing here not married, because I legally can't yet. And have you seen me? There's no girl interested in me. But anyway, I would say that I don't like the government being involved in marriage. As a Christian, I don't like the government trying to play God. And I think I mean, as a Christian, I believe uh, marriage is a bond between a man and a woman that is not given by government. It is seen by God rather than government. And so I think we've seen the more and more the government gets involved in marriage, we see. I mean, we're seeing divorce rates skyrocket. We're seeing. Um, I mean, anecdotal. I don't know about you guys, but I see a lot of people in my life getting divorced that you wouldn't expect, and I think it's because there's a lot of financial incentive in some cases to divorce due to the government. I think a huge kind of area where we can see this is the whole Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation, where it seems like Amber Heard is kind of only married Johnny Depp and then ended up getting divorced because she's gonna get something from it. She made like $7 million, and I just think it's a really sad thing to see all this. Oh, finally, we can see Josh.
I got it connected a different way there for you.
You're back.
You're a little high, but
Yeah.
I don't like you looking down on us. I'm not that pathetic.
We'll talk about getting high on the next episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got to get like some really libertarian on the show.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that overall, when it comes to me, and this is something I brought up last time we mentioned this, last time we talked about this, but like I said, we were going to wait to really go into detail too much. But I really don't like the government being involved in marriage at all. And of course, we bring up divorce because it is something that's in society today. But when it comes to divorce and thinking about what that divorce is going to bring overall, and I like that Buck brought up, the church really being the one that's got a say in the marriage, that's involved in the marriage. I think that's really the only institution, I suppose, even though the church isn't necessarily an institution. I think that's the only real institution that should be involved in a marriage. And I think that's something, just because the only one who is involved in marriage really is God. It's between the man, the woman, and God Himself. And there's really only that triangle. And whenever you start to bring other things in, that's where it becomes ugly. Things like divorce, and of course there are legal aspects. And Tyler brought it up. We've got things like your finances, and people look at that when they get divorced, and that's something that has to be recognized. But I suppose if I were to lay out my plan for how to kind of control divorce and how you would still have the government involved in that, just because it is something that's in society, I think that would mainly really lead to before sort of the way that people sign up for a prenup. If it's something that shouldn't ever cross your mind, but if you're going into it and you ever think that there is any sort of possibility in divorce, I think that's when you can go to the government for help beforehand. But that's really the only thing, is if you allow the government in, rather than imposing their way and demanding that the only way you are married in the government's eyes is if you go through them, and they're kind of acting as God in that way. And that's something personally I'm not very comfortable with. But it's something I think you have to find a solution. I don't know what that solution would be, but and that comes. And I think we brought this up because things like gay marriage, and you look at gay marriage, and that's something that I think I know Buck, you kind of brought up Ron Paul quite a bit. That's something that Ron Paul would have even kind of stood for as far as gay marriage. He even kind of ran on his campaign saying just stay out of it. It's not really for the government. And I think he even kind of ran on that same concept that it's the church to be involved in that marriage, not the government itself.
Yeah, and people are going to, it's at some point, I know straight people that have said this, as well as gay people. Why do we need a title on what we have as a couple? Does it need to be called marriage? Does it need to be called a couple or partnership or whatever? Again, that's not really a government issue in my mind. It's not particularly important as far as a government function would go. And so you guys, and I'm not talking about y'all personally, but people can figure that out on their own, however they want to title themselves as a couple, or if they want three people, whatever they want. If they've got a church And I would suggest that that's, something good to do is to be a member of a church, figure that out with your spiritual father, your priest, your pastor, whatever you want to call it, and go from there.
Yeah. Did you have something too?
No, I think I agree
Yeah.
with what he's saying.
Did you have something there, Tyler? You kept on.
Yeah, I agree a lot with Buck on this. I think if 5 dudes want to get married by government standards, like whatever, because I honestly think that marriage from the government means nothing, because again, they're not God. So it's kind of like playing make believe, in this case.
Yeah, yeah, and it's something, and I like how Buck kind of brought it up. I think coming to think of it, that is something, and that's kind of where you get the government involved. Yeah, I think that's your choice. Whereas, I hate having the government involved in that marriage because, like we've all brought up, they are kind of playing in that role that the church should be or that God should be, and they're
Mhm.
trying to tell you whether you're married or not. And and that's something my wife and I had talked about that beforehand. And like, what is marriage to us before we got married, and we were trying to discuss it because it's something that was very serious, and we wanted to make sure that we understood for each other. Uh and I think I'm going to come back to Buck on this because he mentioned it, but it's something that we discussed, and we is it something that we need to have on a paper to recognize a marriage, or is it something that we learn and we kind of grow together, we learn together, and we grow together, and we create that bond between us and God rather than only a piece of paper that tells us, "Hey, you're married now." And we both kind of came to the conclusion it's silly, but of course we still ended up going through the documentation and everything just because we wanted to make sure that we could get everything done, just because that's the way our society is. But we had discussed that, and I think that's something for those who are getting married to recognize. And Buck kind of brought that up about just going to your local congregation or whoever it is that you may be close with, whatever that may be for you. And I agree with Buck. I think you should have a congregation that you're close with, somebody that you can go to, especially for things like marriage and for counsel and things like that. There's a lot that can come, a lot of good that can come from it. But I want to go back to Buck because you mentioned that originally you weren't going to go through all the paperwork and stuff. You don't have to get too personal on us or anything like that, so you can leave out as much as you want. But kind of tell us a little bit more about that.
We just said, I for me, a license is a permission slip in a way. For instance, your driver's license gives you the quote unquote privilege or right to drive on the government roads. A fishing license gives you, license to go. Uh, I don't fish, but a certain amount of fish you can catch at a certain amount of time. I don't know how that works. The hunting license, there's deer and sometimes it's with a bow, sometimes it's with a gun. There's all these permissions that you have to get these licenses for. And I thought, well, why would I need a license and permission to say, can I marry this woman that I love? It seemed foreign to me. And growing up, what I would say a hardcore libertarian since 2000 or so. And I got married in 2011. And so up until then, it didn't even, it was just kind of well, why on earth would I get a license to do this thing with my wife? I wouldn't get like a consummation or a sex license to have sex with her. So it didn't make any sense in my mind. It just seemed so foreign of a concept to me that it didn't seem necessary.
Yeah, and recognizing what marriage is, especially from a Christian standpoint, it literally is just that. It is just that bond between you and that woman, and of course, God is what creates that bond. And so, yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, it is it when you bring it up that way too. I like how you brought the analogy of kind of comparing it to a driver's license. It's something that the
Mhm.
government gives to you, gives you that privilege. Who's to say that the government has the right to give you the privilege to be with the one that you love? Yeah, that is silly, and
Yeah,
it's a way that I hadn't thought of before.
it made no sense to me at
Yeah,
all. And then again, I would say pure libertarian back then, and I just was like, well, no, I don't need permission to do this. So we went outside the system, I guess you could say, and you get now these guys can be hired on even At the time, I was not a Christian per se, and so you can get these guys that are quote unquote, what do they call it? It's not a pastor, but an ordained minister. And it happened to be one of my best friends, and he was ordained by someone, the Unitarian Church or something like that. And so he he married us, and turns out I didn't need permission from any government to do that.
See, Britton and I kind of had a cool situation. We grew up, and our dad was always a preacher, and so he was preacher for small congregations here and there, and just trying to help them grow. And so we both had the cool experience of having our own father marry us, which meant a lot. I know it meant a lot to me. I don't
That's
know.
really cool. Yeah.
It didn't mean anything to me.
That's-
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. So I think I know Britton's the one that kind of brought up that. I know at least last time you kind of mentioned a little bit today, but you're the one that kind of brought up this idea of how the government should be involved. Um, after discussion, what would be your solution for that?
Oh, that's a great question. So this is a tough one because like I said, I completely agree. I don't think it's the government's job, or I don't think the government should be involved. But like I said, I think that there needs to be some sort of involvement from somebody. Throw some stuff out to me, and I'll decide which one I like better.
Yeah,
At this point, right now, all I have is the government.
yeah,
Um, let's face it, atheists can get married too, so they're not going to get permission from the church or go through the church for that. So, like I said, I definitely think that there should be some sort of foundation for, or some sort of um, we should elect somebody somewhere, to make some decisions that we can put our trust in. That because, like I said, I think people do need assistance in situations such as divorce.
yeah,
Divorce is pretty much my only real reason for that is because I think that there can be a lot of issues between divorce, and what divorce typically leads to is also the children
yeah,
that are involved. So there's a lot involved in divorce that affects not only the husband and wife, but like you said, other um, the children as well. So I definitely think that there needs to be something in place to protect the people.
yeah, yeah. And I can get that. Yeah, and it's something. It's funny how we as humans we make the water so murky at times. Especially, you think of this situation. Marriage should be pretty simple. You find a mate and you stay with them, and that's really all that there is to it. And that's the way that God designed it, and He designed it for man and woman to be together until death. And then man comes along and has to ruin it. God created man to be able to live peacefully in a garden, and man
Mhm.
had to ruin it. And you see how things can get murky like that, and I can see that. I guess, did either of you have any kind of solutions to throw out there to that?
Yeah, my first thought would be some kind of, if you were going to have it to where there's no government sanctioned marriage license system, and the obvious option would be for churches, but like Britton mentioned, well, what if it's for an atheist or something like that? There's You would have to have something like an arbitrator. It would be a contractual issue at that point, I believe. But if they're atheists, they don't have any particular care about God sanctioning their marriage, which is unfortunate. But to each their own, I suppose. So you would look to someone. When there's no God in your life, you're going to fill that hole. And unfortunately, if you want to fill it with an arbitrator or a state system of sorts, and there is no marriage license, again, I would say it's going to be a contractual issue, as cold as that sounds. But for legal purposes, and like you said, a divorce and who gets what, some type of arbitration system would seem to be my first thought.
Yeah, yeah, and I can see that, and it's something. It's I agree with you quite a bit there, Buck, because it's something that it is something that's completely contractual. And I think, kind of going back to the idea of the church being involved, I think when you look at that, if it does come to divorce, when you go to that church to be married, that's something that, of course, is between you and God, and it's something that you should be able to go to that church for support during that. If it does end up to a divorce, because let's be honest, there are some reasonable reasons for divorce, I think.
Abusive
And it's
situations,
yeah,
stuff like
there are
that.
situations where regardless of the situation, I think God would still want reconciliation. And I think that's really taught even in the Bible and looking at how God views divorce. But yeah, I think going back to the church again, if you go to the church for the institution of marriage, I think you should also go back to them again for their help and also separating that marriage as well. Did you just have something there, Tyler?
No, I'm gonna be honest. I I don't know much about marriage other than the Bible stuff. I don't know the legal things, because again, marriage is not in. Not even. I haven't even. I don't even have a girlfriend at this point, so it's way out of the picture.
It's fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, I think we've kind of thrown around a lot of conversation behind, but I think we can all kind of come to the agreement that when it comes to marriage and looking at marriage, it seems that there does have to be something I think that individually you have to think of, and I know for me, I think that's where I stand. I know Buck probably kind of brought that up, is that individually it's something that you need to think of if it does come to that stance where you're the one that got into this contract. Really, it's that's really what you're doing is a contract saying that I swear that I will be with you for the rest of my life. And if you're the one if you're one of those parties that's willing to separate and to break that contract, that's something that you do need to get into. And I think when it comes to that, I think that's when you can go to legal help. I think that's when you can definitely. I think that's to each one's individual right to go to the government for help if that's what they choose to do. And so it seems like we all kind of come to somewhat of an agreement on that. But it is something that each individual needs to think of: is how much are you willing to allow the government to be in your life? And that's something that we should think about on really all aspects of life, all aspects of especially when you boil it down. And that's what here on Politically Insane we talk a lot about is our society. We talk about the societal issues and the things that we see are going on around us that really ruins and tears apart our society. And the government tries to get their hands on everything. And of course, one of them that I know Britton and I are very strong against. I'm assuming, or I guess we're very strongly for. And I'm assuming since Buck's from Texas, I'm assuming that he's probably on the same page as well. But getting into the Second Amendment, how much do you guys think the government should have their involvement on the Second Amendment? Tyler, you haven't spoke much, so I'll go ahead and kick it over to you.
Well, I'm very libertarian on this issue. I believe that the Second Amendment is very clear, shall not be infringed. So I don't believe in any gun control. I believe Republicans and independents and libertarians, conservatives, stuff like that in office need to repeal the NFA, National Firearms Act, for those who don't know, that bans things like automatic weapons. And then I also do believe that the ATF needs to be repealed as well. That's alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Basically, getting rid of all the fun parts of life: alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. So that's my personal belief. The only thing I think the government can get involved in, and it's written in the Constitution, you can lose your rights through due process if you've actually broken a law. Now, we do run into issues with the government making laws like, I don't know, trying to pass the Equality Act, where if you misgender someone, you could be, it's on the same discrimination level as, you know, kicking someone out of your, or like lynching someone or whatever they tried to do with it. So I think you run into issues with that. But overall, I believe you can only lose your right to a firearm if you are a criminal. All law-abiding citizens, I think, should own a firearm, and that's the only way to keep the government in check and your fellow citizens in check. Because I mean, as Josh has a shirt on a store still, I think. The no one asks you to put on a mask when you're carrying this, and it's what gun is it on the shirt?
Uh, that one might be an AK. I can't remember
I think
exactly.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was an AK or something like that.
and no
But
one asks you to wear a mask when you're carrying one of these.
Hmm.
And I guess Buck, you're still a new voice on the show, so go ahead and give us your thoughts on government controlling your guns.
Well, you did preface it by the fact that I'm in Texas. Maybe that has something to do with my cultural upbringing. But yeah, I don't think I'm for zero gun control, and that makes some people in normal society cringe because they, well, what about if you're going to have a tank or something?
But
Uh,
guns are so scary and
yeah, and
loud. And
I would say then get a tank. I don't really care. I believe in zero gun control. I even have a problem to what Tyler is speaking on, and he kind of alluded to, well, now there's getting to be some laws that are a little bit draconian. Once you've served for whatever crime you've been deemed to have committed, then I think that the Second Amendment speaks for itself. And even once you're out, I don't believe in them controlling that part of it either. I think you should be able to get anything you want as far as firearms go.
Yeah. And then
I think I
Britt,
would
you wanna-
agree with that as well.
Yeah, where are you at, Britt?
I am 100% on board with everything that was said already, and I feel like there's nothing left to say.
Yeah, I think this one's gonna be an echo chamber when you get a bunch of right wing conservatives, kind of stepping in
It's
and
because
talking
we're all
about
white.
it.
Yeah,
We're all racist white people.
that's
But,
why we like our guns.
I actually think I know he's kidding, but I think gun control laws have hurt the black community much worse per capita than they have hurt whites. And so I think that's an issue to bring up to them. And I know Maj Toure with Black Guns Matter is good at doing that. I believe he's got those shirts. All gun control is racist. I think it is. And it started as a racist sentiment back in the day, and it continues to be one, although it's cloaked in safety. All tyranny and evil acts are always cloaked in beauty and safety and progress, and gun control is no different.
yeah,
Well-
and when we talk about gun control, Buck's even the one that brought it up. What if somebody wants a tank? And really, the whole idea of what gun control is trying to remove the power from the people. Because if we understand what the Second Amendment truly is, it's so that back in the day when guns were basically the most powerful weapon you can get, people were allowed to have these guns to fight back against the military, and they were able to fight back against the government in case that they were to rise up against them. And the reason why this was put into place is because they had kings who were tyrants, and that's where they came from. That was the society that they came from and the culture that they got away from. And so they said, you know what, we're not going to allow that to happen to this people ever again throughout the remainder of history. So they ought to have the same firepower as the military. Now you get to today where, if I have my AR-15, I know a lot of people that it would scare them. And, they see my AR-15 and they're thinking that's a very scary looking gun. But that AR-15 doesn't stand a chance against a military that has tanks, and they have all of these just huge, all kinds of weaponry and machines and all kinds of technology that they could easily destroy the American people if we were to try to rise up. If there was some reason that we needed to stand against a tyrannical government, we wouldn't have that firepower because of the gun control that is in place. And so, yeah, I think we would all probably agree quite a bit on that with zero gun control because of all of these things. And you start to talk about criminals getting guns, and I think Buck, I think you kind of alluded to that, is where with criminals having their gun rights taken away. I understand for some offenses that may be something that needs to come into play. Of course, while you're in prison, you shouldn't have a gun, things like that. But when you are back out into society, that Second Amendment comes back into play for you, where you ought to be able to defend yourself and just defend your people against the government if they were to be tyrannical. And so, and overall, what we see in places like Chicago is where they completely take guns away from all of the law-abiding citizens. Now there's all of these people who don't care about those laws, and they now have guns. And now the law-abiding citizens can't protect themselves. And that's where you see crime really rising. And it proves itself true whenever you look at things. And I'm sure, you can probably see that a lot more down in Texas, Buck. But, it proves itself true when you look at statistics and see how gun control can really hurt, really kind of, I guess, maybe enhance the crime rates. You see the crime rates going through the roof whenever you start to put more gun laws into place, and it goes to show in places like in Chicago. And so there's just places that have proven that gun control doesn't work. And we kind of even talked about that a little bit. If where Tyler mentioned open carrying, if you see a man with a gun, you're probably not going to mess with him. But Britton kind of disagreed with that a little bit. More or less that no, that's going to be your first target. But
I hate open carry.
I'm pretty
but
sure I
if
got
it's
called a
something to have-
retard over that statement
I think he did too, maybe.
What?
multiple times.
I don't think he went that far, but he was a little more PC with it. But just the idea, we even brought it up though. If you start to see every single person in that store now they have a gun and they're open carrying, maybe now you're starting to kind of back up because you see that people have that same firepower to come back at you. I think that's really what it stands for to be. For the Second Amendment, that's what the Second Amendment stands for. Is for us to be able to rise up.
Completely clear, I'm against that in today's society.
Yeah.
Because 99% of people are not going to open carry.
Yeah.
So therefore, if I'm robbing a store and you are open carrying, you are the first one I will shoot. And then there was no guns left. But if you're concealed carrying, you have a chance to stop me. So in today's society, I disagree.
Yeah. And I can see that. And I guess I'll let Tyler defend himself because he's the one that wanted the open carry.
Oh no, I just think it looks cooler when you open carry. Like you have like the leather strap holster, like the Steven Crowder,
Yeah, there you go.
holster. You like walk into the store, kind of like Wild West style, like you walk into the bar, kicking the door open. It just looks cooler.
To respond quickly to Britton's point, I understand his point, and there has been times, I'm in Texas, so I do see open carry, and sometimes I see it on someone where it's kind of an eye roll, like, oh God, this person's trying to, look like a meme, basically. I don't want a law against what they're doing. To his point, I mean, if you want to be the first one targeted by a bad person, that's on you, man. I wouldn't want a law against open carry. I'm for any kind of carry. But and in fact, I mean, I'm for. I don't even think the Second Amendment. It's nice that it's there, and it does help. The spirit of it helps. Certainly, a lot of boomers here in my state rely on arguments that are pro Second Amendment to have the amount of guns we have in this state. But I don't think that you need permission from a constitution, to own a piece of property and carry it on you. That's your right as being alive. Now, again, I understand that we're in this system where we have to at least pretend that the Constitution exists sometimes. So I'm glad that Second Amendment's there, but even preceding that, I think that there's no relevancy on any government law stopping us from having any weapon and carrying it any way we want.
Yeah.
And I would definitely agree with that. I don't think it should be outlawed. I just think it's stupid.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I've seen guys where I'm like, dude, you look like an idiot, and
Yes,
someone's going to kick your ass in a second here if they had to. But yeah,
I'd like to push back though on Buck's point on the Constitution. I think it's been misinterpreted by both the right and the left at this point, especially those in the government. That the Constitution gives the people permission. No, it's giving the government permission to do what they want, right? It's there to, all right, here's what you're allowed to do, and that's all you're allowed to do, right? You're not allowed to infringe on the Second Amendment. They had to add freedom of speech in there, but it's like, here's Congress can pass laws, and that's it, stuff like that. Rather than, I think a lot of people will go, well, no, it's giving the people permission. And that can be changed. I don't think that it works that way.
that's maybe I feel like you're misinterpreting what I said, and that's on me, not you. I agree with what you just said. I'm glad it's there because they don't have that in Australia, and they're screwed for. But I think that it's been ripped apart so many times. If you look at it logically, I think like for all intents and purposes, we're not living under a constitution at this point. However, because it is there, sometimes it does help. And to your point, yes, it's supposed to, in theory, limit the government rather than give us permission, if that makes sense, like you're saying. And I agree with you. I just think I don't think a human being born needs anything to disallow or allow, if that makes sense. I know
Yeah.
that sounds anarchist in a way, and I think you need to live in a society and small societies, preferably, where there are rules to be had. But I don't know. I'm just, even if they said tomorrow we're tearing apart the Second Amendment, it's gone, because they could do that technically through a court, not a court process. Excuse me. They shouldn't. They want to through a court process. They could do it constitutionally through Congress. And if they were to remove the Second Amendment, I would still think that I could carry whatever gun I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well-
and being in Illinois now, that's something that I'm recognizing is just something that's just ridiculous. Because Illinois gun laws are extremely strong. And it takes, they're the most expensive concealed carry license in the nation. And just some of the strictest laws I've been looking into. I'm trying to obey the laws. I'm probably not succeeding very well, but it's just, yeah. And I think I would agree with you to a point. I think for things like firearms, like you brought it up a minute ago, when you just look at it in the simplicity of it, just the fact that it's an item that you own, to say that you can't carry that. Now, of course, that item can do something. So yeah, you have to be careful, and you should probably go through some training for yourself to understand how to use that. And that's something that everyone ought to take. It's a risk to yourself to be carrying a firearm if you don't know how to use it. So yeah, I think I can agree with you overall, and I see your point that you're making.
And my point about the Constitution being shredded throughout history is what you just said. So Chicago doesn't have to follow it.
Yeah.
Right? But we follow it in Texas for firearm purposes. So if it was an ironclad constitution that was the supposed real law of the land, then there would be no issue in Chicago. But yet there is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think we've got the court systems there to prevent laws like what they have in Chicago, and I mean, even things like the NFA. That is unconstitutional. I agree with Michael Malice on this point, where he says any law that restricts firearms is unconstitutional, and I think the court systems should be doing their jobs and striking things like that down. But instead, they don't do that, sadly.
Right. There's a memo that just leaked that they are finally striking something down that was anti-constitutional.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was right after our conversation on abortion too. That was the interesting part.
Yeah,
they listen to you guys.
They probably do, and I know that they listen to us enough because we have been taken off of YouTube a couple of times. I think I'm trying to think. I know we might have had something messed up with Twitter once, but I can't remember exactly what that was.
Basically, you're not allowed to joke about killing pedophiles.
Yeah.
Or you get removed from YouTube.
Yeah, that was.
Or any pedophile joke, period.
We definitely got a red flag for not being in support of pedophilia. But I think, of course, we can all probably agree to it. I think it's ridiculous for somebody not to be in favor of the Second Amendment, just overall owning a firearm, even just for your own safety, because there are places like Chicago where others don't care about your safety, and they will do things to harm you. And so you should want to protect yourself.
There's no concealed carry permit in Vermont.
In Vermont. Yeah, I know that there's...
Cannot get one in Vermont.
Oh, you can't even get one?
Cannot.
Oh, really? Yeah, I knew that they had strict gun laws.
The word permit still grinds at me. It's like, I don't need a permit to do that. And I remember when they passed CC, concealed carry here in Texas, even then I thought, okay, that's good, but I didn't really need that. I can carry a gun concealed if I want to or not. Like, you're not there to give me permission to do this. So it's so foreign to me, that kind of language, because growing up as a pure libertarian, it's like, I can carry concealed if I have a permit for it or not. But I suppose now that we have that in Texas, maybe that's a good thing that makes it legal, I guess. But yeah, it's still weird.
Unfortunately, all my guns were lost in a boating accident a couple of
there
years
you go. Yeah, mine too. Yeah.
Not mine.
I can't own guns yet because Big Daddy government doesn't want me owning it, and principal at school says I can't bring them to school either. Show them to my friends. No, but it is weird. Like, it's not a right if you have to ask permission.
Right. Exactly.
That means
Yeah.
it's privilege, which is not what the right to bear arms is. It's a right.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something overall, and that's something, again. It's going to be an echo chamber when we talk about things like this. Especially with when we talk about guns. With all of us kind of having a little bit of a libertarianism in us, to an extent, and it is going to be that way where we're going to look at the government and say that they should only be able to govern, and that's about it. And so that kind of leads us into Twitter. For those who didn't hear, Twitter was bought out by Elon Musk, and it was really just a big move for Elon. Elon was trying to fire back. We've seen Parler and Getter and Gab and the Truth Social by Trump. We've seen all of these different platforms trying to take off, trying to get rid of Twitter. And I've joined, I think, every single one of them. And though they have some cool features and they have potential just because of the platforms that they offer, the problem with them that I see is just that it's like this podcast tonight quite a bit, is just an echo chamber where you can't get other points of views, and it is open and you're allowed to speak. But to be honest, those who are on the left don't want you to have the freedom of speech. They don't want you to be allowed to just say whatever you want and to have an open platform to speak. And so they're not going to join that. They're not going to join on there. And so you're not going to see that diversity and seeing an open platform. It's never going to be something like Facebook where you have your actual friends and family that you really know. I think Twitter is more of things like Twitter and Instagram, I think are things that are more of just kind of following people that you probably don't know a lot of times. But you look at these platforms, they're not going to be able to compete with the big tech like Facebook and Twitter. And what Elon did was the perfect combat to it, because if we can't take over Twitter by creating a new one, we'll just buy it. And that was something that you see all the left getting so frustrated with. But what Elon did with that, and why he did it, was that he just wanted the suppression and all of the censorship to just stop. He believes that regardless, and he even tweeted out something along the lines of the fact that it should be really center-based so much that it upsets the left and the right, which I don't completely agree, because people on the right will be completely happy with an open platform, whereas people on the left just aren't going to be. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to like that. But I do agree to the point where you should be able, as a user, you should be able to upset people on the left and the right. And so that's really what he's trying to do, is get rid of the algorithms that put shadow bans on people. And even on our own Twitter, for the Politically Insane Twitter, I saw a little bit the day that Elon took over. I saw like 3 extra followers just randomly popped up out of nowhere, and I hadn't even been on Twitter for a while. And so I was like, well, that's kind of ironic. It could be completely irony, but it was just odd to see that, and that was something that he wants to get rid of. But kind of opening it up, I guess, Buck, we'll start with you since you're our guest. Where do you see the government / big tech and their control over what you can and can't do on social media?
This is a tough one because it's something that's a little bit new to us, even though I understand social media is, I know I'm 45 years old, so it still seems new. Although it's, for some of you young guys like Tyler, it's like new. It's been around my whole life, but
Yeah, exactly.
it's a new phenomenon, especially since Trump threw his name in the hat to run in 2015 or whenever that was. The clampdown started happening, and it's interesting because the left runs everything in this country for the most part. And so they started, I think, to see a small threat to their power, and then they did what a lot of you would do instinctively. A lot of people, human nature, to keep your power is to shut up the enemy. And so on one hand, I get what they were doing, and I think it's a white pill in a way, meaning that I think they see the dissident right as a threat to their power, and they're starting to sense that the public might be waking up just a bit. And so that's a good sign, I think. And especially like YouTube once Biden got elected, YouTube took the thumbs down feature
Yeah.
off. I mean, you can still do it, but it doesn't register as a thumbs down count
Yeah.
anymore. What a white pill that is, because they're not doing that. So uh, you guys or me or people on the dissident right or in Ron Paul, they're not doing that to protect all of us from looking like we're not popular. They're doing that because once the White House started, they have their own YouTube channel. Once they started putting out all of these videos that were so absurd, they were getting massively ratioed and hated on. And so YouTube, no government interference, apparently, they took this feature off, and that's because they realized there's a grassroots groundswell of hatred towards the establishment. And so I don't know that I'm comfortable yet saying there should be some kind of government interference and government saying, well, they can't do this or they can do this. Like you alluded to, Elon Musk doing what he did might be the perfect solution. It's just that we're not used to seeing someone, and I wouldn't put Elon on the right by any means, but I would say
Yeah.
that he's at least in rhetoric anti establishment in some weird way. It's weird to say that the richest man in the world is anti establishment, but he's at least rhetorically sniping at some of these people that we all hate. And I think that's why we like watching this whole dog and pony show from the sidelines. But I mean, if he's going to buy it, he's richer than everyone else. He could literally buy it and shut it down, and he'd still be the richest man in the world. So what he's doing, I think, it's going to be interesting. It's almost like an experiment for us to kind of watch and see what happens here. I don't want to totally go all in and go, well, Elon's my new guy and I love what he's doing. We shall see. This is an interesting experiment, and I so far it looks good. And he's certainly like Trump. I didn't know what to think of him at first in 2015 and then 2016, but I did start to think, well, he certainly pisses off all the people I hate. And so Elon's doing that too. So this is going to be an interesting experiment to see where we go with this. And I'm not comfortable. So the powers that be hate me and people like you guys. So to give them more power over media platforms doesn't seem like a smart idea. Certainly, if they could get Tucker Carlson off the air, they would do it right now. And
Absolutely.
so the reason they can't do that is because they don't quite have that much power to do so. And because, again, Tucker's like Elon, he has so much power because he's so popular. Elon has it through money. Tucker has it through some money, but popularity. They can't just pull the plug on him. And so I don't know. Maybe I do feel that the pendulum is swinging back rightward. That the left's pushed too far. They got too greedy with their power, and that there's too many people waking up and pushing back on this. And I think we're about to experience that in 2022 when the midterms come. So the powers that be don't have the perceived power that they're going to need to shut these people up. Even think of just Alex Jones, and I know he's bigger here in Texas maybe than other places, but even when they tried to deplatform him, he pops back up with his own entire network, and everyone saw what they were trying to do. And while he might not have the YouTube presence or he used to be here on FM radio, he doesn't have that, but he's got his own entire network. The guy's a millionaire. He's got a giant house in West Austin.
Got a helicopter.
Yeah, so enough people see that and go, you don't want him to be heard. I wonder what he's saying. And so if this were the 80s or 90s, or certainly when the internet was a new thing, when I was just out of high school, it would be really easy just to shut people out and push them away. But the powers that be didn't have that foresight to see maybe I should keep some of these people quiet. So that it organically grew and grew, and Alex became a nationwide, if not worldwide, phenomenon. Then they try to clamp down on him, but still, it's like whack-a-mole. You try to slam someone down here, they pop up over here. Overall, it's hard to do. I'd rather not give the government too much power to do things like that. And I think even if you did, I don't know, man. The toothpaste is out of the tube at this point. It's going to be hard to control this organic just what's going on with social media and the internet and these things popping up everywhere. Certainly after COVID, even we saw mass migration from blue states to red states and an effective secession in some ways. Look at Florida. DeSantis is effectively a king of Florida, and they're their own entity. So I think as time goes on and we get split down ideological lines, we're going to see more of that. And so I don't even know that executive power is going to be something that can stop what's going to happen here.
Yeah, yeah, and you bring up a lot of good points there, and just overall, yeah, there's you think of what social media is even supposed to be, and if we do have a freedom of speech, then where do they step in, and what and maybe not even necessarily just the government, like I mentioned before, even just big tech and the CEO of Twitter and whoever owns it, now Elon Musk. How much censorship should he have? And I kind of agree with you there. It's a dangerous game when you start to give that power to someone. How much you allow others to speak and how much you allow them to kind of give their 2 cents on a platform that's supposed to be an open platform.
Can I say something real quick that I should have said? I'm sorry for interrupting. Uh, People kept saying prior to Elon buying Twitter, the left certainly. Well, what? It's a private business. They can do what they want. But all of a sudden, they became libertarians, basically. But it's like, no, it's not a private business. It was sponsored initially by CIA startup money and these private NGO groups. There was all of this. It wasn't just some organic person going, I'm going to start a private company called Twitter. It was not that at all. And it's funny because I did shows on this, and some of us knew this whole phenomenon, how they sprung up with this startup money that was not exactly private, we'll say. And now, all of a sudden, when Elon Musk buys it, the same people that were saying, well, start your own company, Twitter's private. Now they're finally saying, well, Elon's buying it. It's going to become private. They're starting to use that language. And I'm like, wait a second. You were saying it was private last year and it wasn't, but it's almost like they knew that. And they're just throwing these talking points out there because, again, it was started up by CIA money. So is Google. So is Facebook. They're not private, but now they do perceive it as a threat because Elon Musk buying it wholesale all out, it is private.
Yeah.
And I find it funny that now they're also using that same word, but it's true now. So it's interesting to watch this happen.
That is a funny funny kind of situation that they kind of put themselves in too.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of it that way, but I did think of it, how they were trying to say that it was private before. They were wrong, and you kind of brought that up, but now it truly is private. Now the tables have turned, and they don't want to accept that same reality. That is funny.
Yes, they hate it. It's
Yeah.
nuts. And again, if the Elon thing started, again, he's near me. He's in Austin. Uh, I was hesitant to jump on board. It was like, well, let me just see what this guy's doing. But we'll see. Like I said, he certainly pisses off all the right people.
Yeah. Britton, you've been kind of quiet over there. How much involvement should higher ups have in social media and how much they can censor?
So obviously, I mean, I agree. I'm sure everybody's shocked that I agree. But I agree with what's been said so far. I definitely, I think that kind of the whole freedom of speech. I mean, I think that's kind of what it all comes back to. I feel like a lot of the issues that I have with it is that there's not necessarily freedom of speech anymore. I think a lot of stuff gets more publicity than others, and they can control what kind of. I hate the media just in general. I mean, I know we're on a platform right now, but
Yeah.
the media in general just sucks. I mean, it's controlled by all these companies and government and stuff that they are just simply putting out there, what they want. So there's a lot of that going on. So obviously, I disagree with that. The whole Elon Musk thing, sure, that's cool. I mean, kind of like Buck already said, we'll see what happens with that. If Elon Musk now, if he'll go ahead and like buy, say, the NCAA and push for a 16 team playoff,
Yeah.
I'm all about it. But Twitter, yeah, I think it's cool. I like it so far. Um, I'm personally not a really big Twitter guy anyway. I'm on Twitter. A lot of that is to follow sports teams. You get a lot of information from there. Uh, Other than that, I don't really give two craps about Twitter, to be completely honest. I think you brought up some some of the other platforms that try to compete, like Parlor. Parlor sucked. I mean, I was all about Parlor. I was like, okay, this is cool. I like the idea behind it. But all these platforms they're either going to be, try to be the same, but they're not, because you're never going to compete. Because if you're going to be the same as Twitter, well, guess what? Twitter already has millions and millions of people already on it. Not everybody's switching over. So there's really no taking over by adding another platform that's that's similar, or in most cases that I've found worse.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these platforms just suck. But Elon Musk, we'll see. That's about all I have to say.
Yeah, and I can agree with that too. That just the pure aspect that we don't know, because Elon's kind of I don't know. He might be a hidden gem. He might just be sitting there just to kind of get us all in the end. We really don't know yet, and it's something we'll have to just wait and see where it goes. And it's something that I think we can all probably agree that we mainly have to define what violence truly is, and keep violence from being on any of these platforms. I think that's the only real involvement that, whether it be government or the CEOs and higher ups of social media, we have to define what violence really is, because a lot of the violence that we see that's called violence isn't violence. They talk about things like January 6th being the most violent day in America history since 9/11, and just things like that. We have to define what violence really is. And that's the only involvement I see that they should have any kind of say on.
Violence is going to be whatever the people in power say it is, unfortunately.
Yeah,
because the left is in power right now. So of course they say January 6th was the most violent thing. Then you have blue check leftists saying they think that right wingers should be aborted. So that's not violent to them. That's just a sad reality of power structures.
Yeah, defining it is really where it all comes down to. But we're kind of running short on time. We're going to go ahead and skip over. Tyler actually had a game for us all to play, so I'll let Tyler kind of take over from there, and he'll also be the one to kind of give us the rules and everything of the game.
Yeah, this game is called Name That Flag.
I'm gay.
And there's our makeshift stinger.
But I wasn't expecting that.
I wish you would.
I thought you said flag.
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't say the other word. So basically, how the game's gonna work is I will show you guys a flag. It's a pride flag that I found on the internet. But there's 5 of them, I think, and you'll have 4 options for you to choose from, and they're very interesting. And then whoever gets it gets a point, obviously. And then the real trick is, once you know what the sexuality or gender is, you have to guess what it could mean. So I think this will be interesting.
Oh, this will be fun.
So let's go to this first one. This is the easier one. You have this flag. Option A is bisexual, B bipolar, C green pride, or D agender. And we'll go with Buck first.
I say bipolar.
Bipolar. Josh?
I'm kind of confused on this. Can you bring that back up again real
quick?
I don't even know what green pride would be, but I'm going to go with that because there's a green stripe.
All right. And Britton?
Not to go with any of them. I'm going to go with D, agender.
D? All right. And Britton would be correct. It is agender. The real question is, can you guys figure out what agender means?
It is a gender. It is a male or a female.
No, it's the opposite of that, because A means not. So they're saying that I'm not. I don't have a gender.
You are a flying helicopter.
I understand that that's insane, but there's people out there that would say that. So the fact that it's odd gender is they're saying that they don't have one.
Yeah.
What about you, Josh?
I was kind of along the same lines of what Buck had, even though I like the pun that Britton had.
So both you and Buck were correct with as defined by the website that I hope didn't install viruses like AIDS and stuff like that. An agender person is someone who identifies as having no gender or being without gender identity.
Okay.
I'm not going to read all of this gibberish because it's BS.
Stupid.
I haven't even heard of it, honestly.
You're gonna get some ones that you've definitely never heard of. Here is the next one. This is flag number 2. Your options are A,
shit.
canine sexual, B, bear, C, cat, or D, puma gender.
A.
And so we'll go with Britain first.
A.
A. Josh.
I don't want to go with A, but that's the one that I think that makes most sense.
All right, and Buck.
It's more of a cat paw.
All day. That is B.
B.
Okay.
I think.
All right.
I say that so
Correct.
confidently.
The correct answer is B
Ah,
for
okay.
bear. And
He's shaking his head. Did you know that, Buck?
It does.
Well, bear is a term in the gay world, and so I've never heard of any of those other things, and I have heard of bear, and it looked like a bear print. So that's just.
Well
It
done.
did look like a bear print after you said that, so that's
Well
why I was
done.
like, oh, you know what?
We're putting logic into an illogical situation, but it looked like a bear thing.
well, Buck is correct with the bear's term in the gay community.
Yeah.
Any guesses on what it could mean?
Well, of course, I know what it means.
Oh
Do
well,
you guys
we'll give
not
the
know
point
what
to
bear
Buck.
is?
No, I've never heard of it.
Britain?
I've never.
Oh shit! I'm
Unlike you, Buck, they don't spend time in gay bathhouses.
Yeah, well, you guys have never been with a bear, have you? No, a bear is a big, hairy, gay guy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I
So
should have
Buck
known
is
that.
The 2 point here. All right, so the scores right now are 3 points Buck, 1 point for Josh, and then 1 point for Britain.
How did Josh get a point? I'm curious.
Josh, the agender. He got the definition of
I agree
agender.
with Buck.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So this is flag number 3. Your options are perio. I don't even know how to say that. Polysexual is B. C is BXY. I don't even know how to say that either. Or D is GXRL. We'll go with Buck first.
I'll say polysexual because I don't know what
Polysexual?
any of those other things mean.
Josh?
I'm gonna go. I think that was C, the Bixahi.
Yeah, the Bix. I have no idea.
I'll go
And
D.
Britain?
D is in dog, or I won't say that.
Yeah. As in what most of these people under these flags like.
Mhm.
All right. The answer is C.
Yes.
I have no. I'm not even gonna try to say that.
It's boy without putting any kind of gender in it, so they take the O out.
Yes, I think.
It's
Any guesses
interesting
on what it
that
could
now
mean?
it's XY they put in there, but rather than never mind.
That is funny.
That is yeah. Any guesses?
Oh, that was my guess.
Was your guess? Buck?
Gosh, I would say that it means you were born a boy, but now you don't identify as one. As stupid as that sounds.
And Britain?
That's about what I was gonna say.
All right. Well, it is even stupider than that.
Oh,
So
That's crazy.
BXY, pronounced like boy, is a gender that is both boy and a gender / no gender. You can be a boy and a gender, no gender at the same time. Go between them or fluctuate between feeling male and not feeling gender.
We were so far off on that.
The only
Yeah.
reason why I guessed is because I knew that it was like boy without
Yeah.
without putting O in it to put gender and things, but then it's blue, so I went with that over girl.
I like it.
That's
Okay.
why I went with D, but thinking D was girl, but essentially that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Josh has 2 points, Britain has 1, and Buck has 3, I believe.
Britain would have 2 now because he just now guessed
2.
that definition.
Oh, yeah, that's it. All right.
On the score there, Britt.
So here's the next flag number 4. This one's really interesting. You have 4 different options. You have A for lesbian feminism, B for trans woman feminism, C for axe gender, and D, violent gender.
Huh.
We'll start with Britain this time.
Can you show me those again?
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn.
I'm gonna go with axe gender because that sounds cool.
Axe gender, yeah. All right, Buck.
This one's tough. I'll say trans woman feminism.
Trans woman feminism. Okay. And Josh?
I was going with B as well, trans woman feminism.
All right.
How can they read
And-
feminism with trans, though?
It doesn't work, but we'll see. The answer, you guys are all wrong. It's lesbian feminism. And I'm guessing you could all probably guess what it means.
Now I see it, I suppose. Sure.
Is,
Yeah,
that, is that supposed to be like a bow tie and an axe because they're powerful, but it's like a bow tie too because they're lesbians?
Oh, that would actually make sense.
But a lot of lesbians dress like lumberjacks.
They do.
So
yeah, true. That
That's-
makes
that-
sense.
I could see that. And
Yeah.
it's like a more powerful, manly feminism,
Yeah.
I
Right.
guess. As
I get
strange
it.
as
So
that
it's
sounds.
feminism, but we're going to become men.
Yeah,
Instead of
that's
fight men, we're
something
going to
like that.
become men.
yeah.
We're manly women, and therefore we're more powerful. But
Yeah,
men are not.
Mm,
they're
Broad.
better than men.
yeah. The quicker picker upper.
I
All
got
right,
a
and
shirt
the
when I was down in South Dakota, but I can't read it out loud.
And the last one, this is going to be the most confusing one, I think, because it means absolutely nothing. Here is the last and final flag. A, diamond sexual. B, asexual. C, polysexual. Or D, pocket gender.
It's gotta be D.
You going with D?
Oh, yeah.
Josh,
I'm going with C, polysexual.
polysexual. And Buck?
Me.
So am I, polysexual. That I'm going to keep saying that one until it becomes the answer.
Well, for
Hold on,
this one,
Hold on.
He's looking it up.
No, I'm not. I swear.
Flags,
I don't know
word
if you guys can see me in the little the window that
Oh,
the public can't see. It's asexual.
asexual.
Yep.
All right.
I could see
I can
that.
see that. I'm
And
still gonna stick with pocket gender because it's awesome.
and Britain would be correct with pocket
What?
gender.
What is that?
I told you guys.
Britain identifies as pocket gender.
Oh, he
I
is.
actually have a roommate.
Any guesses on what it could mean?
You keep your gender disclosed in your pocket.
Okay. Buck.
So I would say that you are similar to that, but a little bit more in depth. You are one that you don't want your gender identified. You don't want other people to know it because it's none of their business.
Okay.
Because you're pocket.
I would say that you'll find out what my gender is once you reach into my pocket.
I like that
That's
one
a
better.
good
I want to go with that.
I wish that was it. You guys are all wrong. It's pocket gender is a series of gender identities that are used by either one person or a small group of people. I don't know what that means. The pink and blue represent masculinity and femininity.
Feminism.
Femininity.
No, you know the thing.
Feminine. Yeah, feminine. I hate this. I
good.
can't read this gibberish. Feminine.
Femininity.
You know what I'm trying to say. They are shaped in semi-triangles to represent the varying amounts of masculinity and femininity. That word again, I cannot say. The purple represents a mix of both. And the black represents a lack of either. So basically it means nothing.
I didn't even see the black on the on the flag.
Well, yeah, I didn't even notice that there was black.
What's the orange diamond?
That's the part I was wondering.
That's the center, which is for you to guess.
Okay. So the black represents a lack of either or a mix, including some
was the
form of
black?
genderlessness. And the orange represents maverick,
What is that?
the separation of any gender, including genderlessness.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
So it means nothing. It's a flag that means absolutely nothing. This has
Wonderful
been Name That Flag.
That was
I'm gay, 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 gay.
Well, that was a game, I guess. But
Yeah.
it looks like the end score was Britain 3, Buck 3, and I only had 2.
So basically, you're a loser.
I am the loser of the week. So I guess if the game is not to win and it's to lose, then I am the loser.
That's a good game to lose.
Well, actually, this means you're the least gay
It's true. I
because
think,
you know
Oh,
less about this
I
stuff.
think I win
So-
overall.
To Buck and Britain,
Why are you gay?
that's my last question.
Yeah, so that was something. We'll have to try that again with something that maybe I can come out ahead in. But yeah, I think I'll take the loss on that one after all.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, again, Buck, kind of coming to a close. I do want to thank you again for taking a little bit of time out of your Thursday night, especially since you're technically still on the call, I guess, and just kind of always on duty, aren't you?
No, I work. It's a city department, and
Okay.
so I am off duty till Monday. So yeah,
Cool.
I'm just hanging out with my wife and you gender flag dudes.
Buck, before we go, I will say I appreciate. Thank you for your service.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it was great to have you on. We'll have to have you on again, maybe on a game that all of us can maybe have a little bit more of an understanding of. But it really is nice to have your opinion, your views to kind of help widen up didn't really give us a whole lot of anything other than maybe more echoes, but it was still good conversation, and it was something that we were able to kind of add to the table. So I do appreciate you for taking out of time, and tell your wife I say thank you for letting us steal you for a little while too.
I will.
But,
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate it, so.
he's being stolen by men again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna tell her stolen by guys talking about bears.
and none of us are. I guess Britain might be the hairiest of us, so he'd be the only one that could even identify as close to a bear. But
Yeah, Josh looks like a child.
I do.
You've never
I'm
grown
24,
facial hair
but
in your
I
life,
still
have
look
you?
like I'm 14. So, but of course, thank you, Buck, for joining us, and for everyone watching, thank you for joining us. If you're listening to this after the fact, still thank you, and of course, as always, make sure to help us out by sharing this. Share this with your friends, your families. Share it on social media. And the best way to support us is just simply going and giving us a 5-star review in Apple Podcast or Spotify. And you can go there and help us out there. We thank you all so much. And until next